like that's your time to voice your concerns.
But a lot of us prefer to gossip than to see change.
Yeah.
Because gossip. What's going on, good people, and welcome to the Unchurched Podcast.
What's up?
My name is Cole Jones, and I'm joined today by my illustrious, very outspoken,
oh wow,
and charming co-host.
I got a little charm.
Little charm.
Okay.
Mr. Antonio James Andrews.
What's up, Cole?
How are you, sir?
I'm good, brother. It's hot. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Look, this heat got me like I do not want to go to hell.
Well, I felt like that 2 weeks ago when it was in the hundreds for like 5 days straight.
Yes.
And it was June.
Yes.
Just June.
It's crazy when it's hot when the air is blasting. Like I had to go and turn. Okay, I don't want to say the temperature that I keep it on because y'all gonna be like, that's why you hot. But like, no, my house don't be hot. But I had to turn it down lower than that. I'm on like 73 now.
Just 73?
Yes.
That's like the hottest I'll let it get.
I usually keep it on like 76, 75.
For real?
Yeah, and I be freezing. But it's too hot for that. Like I wake up sweating, so I put it down to 73.
I'm perpetually hot.
I am too, though.
And 73?
I do not be hot. I don't know, like, and honestly.
Do you live in the basement?
No. Yeah.
Really?
I promise.
I don't know.
I can send you a picture of the thermostat.
You're going to have to. I was raised by the AC doctor. And so this time of year, our air, 70 was the hottest it was ever going to get. And if it got above 70, we had a problem.
Oh, my goodness.
Like, I know everybody was talking about, but it's the money. Like, Brian Jones, the AC doctor. You should call Peak Performance Heating and Air if you're in Birmingham.
Yeah. Peak Performance.
But my daddy is the AC doctor, and we were not going to be hot. And in the wintertime, we were not going to be cold.
See, okay. Now the wintertime, I don't know. Like, I'm funny. In the wintertime, I barely have on heat. Like, I may turn it on, but
then you can't be perpetually like.
I get too hot then because I'm already hot natured. So like usually during the winter, I'll set it to like 73. Like, the winter is like 73, 74 if it's really cold. But yeah, I usually just have it turned off because it just gets so hot. Now during the night, I'll turn it on, but during the day, I usually just have it off.
Really?
Uh-huh.
I don't know nothing about that at all.
Yes, but I'm sorry. That was a tangent, but it's just hot outside.
Absolutely,
it's hot outside.
It is hot outside, and they say Alabama weather has been bipolar. It's really not been bipolar lately. I just think it's hot headed.
It is hot headed. That was a good one. I like that. I feel like Miss Tina corny joke time,
right?
But okay, a small tangent. So she is working with Beyonce doing like the new hairline. And so she was doing Victoria Monet's hair. Who is she? Beyonce's mom, Tina Knowles. Okay. That's why I said Miss Tina's corny joke time.
Oh, I didn't know.
So on Instagram, she does like corny joke times. Mm-hmm. Like, hey guys, it's Miss Tina. Miss Tina's corny joke time. And she tells corny jokes and they are the funniest thing ever. But Victoria Monet did like a press thing with her. So she asked her to do like a corny joke. So Victoria Monet did one and she said like, what do you call a hot comb? And I just forgot what she said, but I think she said something along the lines of like, oh, I need to get some straightening. And it was the funniest corny joke ever. Hilarious. I love corny jokes.
That's hilarious. Well, today we are talking about what in the world do I owe the church?
What do we owe the church?
Like, and I think in a time where like a lot of people are falling out of love with church and they don't want to go to church, and a lot of us feel like we don't owe the church anything, but the church has had demands on us for generations. And I think a lot of people in our generation and the generations following are kind of like, but I don't owe y'all anything.
Yeah.
And so today I just want to take a deep dive in what do you owe the church if you have expectations of the church. And as a clergyman of the gospel ministry,
yeah,
I find it really interesting that we do more funerals than we do weddings in our church. And I would say 50% of the funerals we do in our church are not members of our church.
yeah.
And I've always found it interesting that, I'm just be real, I've always found it annoying.
Okay.
That people want a church funeral but don't want to live a church to life. Or when somebody's in trouble, you want to call the pastor, but you don't think you owe the church anything any other day. And we have so many issues with the church. And so I just want to air it out. Let's talk about it. Like, let's be ugly honest and let's tell the truth. So what do I owe the church?
What do we owe the church? So for starters, I feel like every time somebody joins the church, like the pastors always say a variation of like, let's take your gifts and blend them with our gifts and use them to glorify God. So I feel like the first thing that you do owe the church is like your talents. And I think that it is important that you do that because, for one, it's important that the church has many different people there because we all have something special that we bring to the table. So I think that is what makes community special, when everybody is not the same, because we all have different things that God has like gifted us with. So like for me, my gift that I contribute to the church is singing song. Like, I can't play. Don't ask me to play none because we gonna have instrumentals from YouTube. But like, I feel like I can sing. Your gift, child, you be preaching up a storm, preaching, and playing and singing.
I don't know about the singing part.
Look, small tangent. Cole and I, we was singing together the other night. This dude right here, look, he be singing.
I can play. I can direct.
He can sing too.
I can preach and teach.
He can sing too.
I can hold down that tenor note. Yeah.
Listen, by the end of the year, we gonna have Cole. I mean, blowing.
All right, we'll see.
Okay,
we're gonna run this track back. In December, and we're gonna see.
We gotta put in the work though, bro. We gonna put.
I've been singing and playing.
Perf.
I've been singing and playing.
Oh yeah, because I gave you homework.
You gave me homework.
How much have you been doing your homework?
I've been singing and playing.
Okay.
I haven't been singing and playing like I had to perform on Sunday because like, I'm not finna be embarrassed, but I have been practicing.
Okay, but this is good.
Yeah.
But back to what I was saying, I think the least that you owe the church is like your gifts and your talents.
Yeah, and let me say it like this, because I know I'm thinking of somebody in particular right now, and he kind of follows me, so I would not like tell too many details. Extremely gifted, like probably one of the he gonna know who I'm talking about. Probably one of the most gifted musical gifts in the city of Birmingham, as far as putting together ensembles. And it's well known, well established. But there have been people, and I'll say it, in our church that have attacked him as a person, and he felt like it was an attack on his gift. And attacked his gift, and it felt like it was an attack on his person. And so he underwent long seasons where he didn't want to operate in his gift and out of community of church. And so one thing that I noticed is like a lot of times we feel attacked by a person. So rarely does a whole church attack you. And we can deal with that another day.
Okay.
Usually it's just like a person or a group of people.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
And it's not the whole church, but it feels like it's the whole church because in our minds, they are a representative of said church. And so I think a lot of times we get offended by the way that people behave as if people are not people. Like, we have family issues. And some of us do choose not to be in a relationship with our family, but for the most part, most of us don't.
Yeah.
We have work issues. And we still show up until we find somewhere else to go. You know,
I think going back to a conversation that I had with my Uncle Stefan, I think that it's because people really don't see value in the church. Because I think like you see value in your family. You see value. You got to see value in your job. You need to pay your bills.
Right.
Especially now when everything's so high.
Talk about it.
Lord, let's talk about it. I went to Chick-fil-A. Why is Chick-fil-A like $13 now?
I had a 5-item Target order. No, I didn't buy a TV. No, I didn't buy no electronics.
It was about $400.
I had a four or five items, like a case of water, some sparkling water, and 2 or 3 other things. Why was it $75?
That's good though. You got out
water.
Ooh.
2 of my items were water. Brother, water and some dog treats.
I remember when Chick-fil-A was like $7.65 for a meal. $12, $13 is ridiculous.
I remember in high school, if I had $6 in my wallet, I could eat a meal.
Yes. Now,
and should I go when I was eating McDonald's? I get a pie, hamburger, fry, and a drink.
Do you hear me?
For $4.
Because all the large drinks was $1. The fry was like $1.10. The burger, did I ever say the burger? The burger was like $1.10 too.
But see, I can get an all-American meal, and I ain't had McDonald's in 10 years. But like I get an all-American meal, and I got a pie too. Why in the world is a meal at a fast food joint? I remember going to a sit-down restaurant, and $12 was what I expected to pay.
You know what? I remember the easy days of like $25, and that's including the tip. Like, I could go out with $25 and be fine. Now I need my credit card.
It's insane.
You got to put down an arm to go out now.
Insane.
What were we talking about before this? Because you know I didn't forget.
We're definitely talking about what people don't see value in the church.
Oh, you see value in your job, okay, because you need money because stuff high. Okay, gotcha. But yeah, like I think it's because people really don't see the value in the church. So that may be why, Lord, this is the episode. That may be why they don't care to participate, because it's like, what are you adding to my life?
So let's talk about it.
Oh, but I think this is going to go back to being in the right church, being in the right community.
Yeah. So let's just say this. If I'm at the right church, what is it adding to my life? Well, on Sunday morning, I have the opportunity to worship corporately. And here's the thing about corporate worship. I worship all week long. Whether I'm in the shower, whether I'm sitting at my piano, whether I am riding down the road, whether it's early in the morning with me and my Bible and the Word of God, I worship as a Christian. You should worship all week long.
Yeah.
But it's something about being in a room where everybody's worshiping.
It is.
That you can't recreate that at home.
You can't. You can watch videos of it. And I don't want to, change the subject again, but I even feel like that's why I can't do the online worship.
That's exactly why I can't do online worship.
I got to be in the house to get that experience. Because like you said, it's something you can't recreate, and it's something about the spirit being in that place.
But can I give you some word? So the Bible says that where 2 or more are gathered, there God is.
Yes.
And I've worshiped with 2 people. It's cool, but it's like the more people that are on one accord that are worshiping, that sense of God's presence gets really thick.
Yes.
And don't discount it. Like, I have been at home and had worship experience, and I knew the Lord was there.
Yes.
But there is something that is profound about being in the place and everybody's worshiping. And the Spirit of the Lord begins to move on the place. It's something you will not get at home unless you got 20 brothers and sisters. And I ain't got that.
I don't either.
So I think that that's the first thing you get that. But that will require you to engage in worship. Yeah. Because how many of us go to church and we don't engage in worship? We are so focused on our phone. We so focused on, she ain't had to wear that. Where's her Spanx? Yeah. Why is that usher so mean? Who preaching today? Because if I don't see the right person in the middle seat, and we don't do that no more, that we don't even sit in the pulpit no more unless a funeral.
You know what? And I didn't even since COVID, I ain't seen. Okay, we did at a program, but it was a program. Oh Lord, I hope y'all don't hear that hit. But yeah, pastors don't sit up in the pulpit no more.
We haven't. Yeah, we're literally since COVID. Well, we haven't really sat in the pulpit in the last 10 years. They would come up to the pulpit right before the sermon. But no, the clergy don't sit in the pulpit unless it's a funeral. Not at our church.
Same here.
And so, but pre-COVID, you walk in and the wrong person sitting in the middle of the seat. I've watched people walk out the sanctuary. I've watched the wrong person be up and somebody walk in and say, "Oh no," and turn around in the aisle.
In the aisle is crazy.
I've seen it a couple times.
But I can't lie. I have walked in and been like,
at least you stayed.
Yeah, because yeah,
At least you stayed.
because I have social anxiety, so I'll be embarrassed if I get up and leave.
But I think a lot of times we enter the sanctuary with the expectation and the focus on all of the wrong things.
Hmm.
I'm worried about who's going to preach, as if I can't receive a word from anybody.
Yeah.
I'm worried about what songs are they singing, because if it ain't my song, I'm not going to even try to engage in worship.
Hmm.
I'm worried about, well, what kind of song is it?
Hmm.
Because, and I'm guilty of this. If I walk in church at the Highlands, I'm probably not going to engage in worship for real.
Okay.
And that's me. That's a growth place for me. This is me, just me being honest.
Yeah.
Or if I walk in, I'm not going to call the name of the church, but like one of these old churches where they like singing real old Latin hymns.
Yeah. You know what? I can't lie. You just ate me up, because if I go to a church like that, my mind is not even in the place of worship. It's like,
what is happening?
Literally, because it's always a miss, but maybe it's a miss because I'm not engaging. And that's crazy too, because going back to that, it's been times where in the moment I have felt like some stuff sound a mess, and then you go back and listen, or you. Oh, okay. So an example of that is for remix. So I sung at this conference. It's InterVarsity's like Black student conference. So my friend Jamal was on their staff. So he asked me to come and lead worship with them. At rehearsal, I was like, "Ooh, y'all, like this is a mess. I don't know how this is gonna pull together." But then we got up there, and God really do a work. So you just got to really engage and trust God. So like that's what I'm learning. But I went on that whole tangent just to say, I guess I don't know.
I agree,
Yeah.
but I also think that part of engaging in worship is requiring you to live a life of worship.
Yeah,
because it's really hard to try to get the car to turn on when I'm with other people if my heart hasn't been engaged in worship all week.
Yes.
And I think a lot of people come to church with the expectation that they're going to engage in worship for one time a week. And when they don't get anything out of worshiping together, because I haven't worshiped all week, I don't even have a heart for worship right now.
Yes.
To even engage in what's happening in a room. And then I have the audacity to say, I didn't get nothing today. And so I think that's part of it. I think the other part of it is, so like Sunday morning should only be 10% of what you get out of your church. And I know that for a lot of people, that's 95% of what they get out of your church. I think the other thing is, how are you, like, what are you doing for discipleship? And I think this next part of the conversation, the onus is on both the person and the church. Because I think first, the church has to offer things that help me grow.
Yes, for sure.
So I need Bible study. I need Sunday school small group. To me, they're almost the same depending on the church.
Yeah.
I need opportunities to grow, whether it is like an intensive, a class, whatever.
Yeah.
There needs to be opportunities for me to engage to grow. Then it's on me to show up and engage in those classes.
Yes.
If I'm serious about my spiritual growth.
No, I agree. I feel like it's on the person and on the church, but honestly, a lot of churches is on the church because they don't really have the offerings to actually. Well, they don't have the offerings available to even do it, because I'm thinking about like my church. We do, but like also I ain't gonna lie, it is on me because
you don't go.
I don't go. But like also it's really not the space there. So like some churches really just don't have the space or the like capacity to be able to do it.
I agree and I disagree.
Okay.
And like I agree and I disagree. Like I am Mr. Revamp Sunday School.
Okay.
Like I am all for revamping Sunday school. As a matter of fact, pre-pandemic, that's exactly what I did. I flipped our Sunday school on its head.
Okay.
Because every 3 years in the Sunday school book, you are going through the same stories. So you, in a 3-year turn, you have gone through the whole Bible, but you've never taken a deep dive. You've never got to go to a new level. It's the same lessons over and over again. And if you have a good teacher, they may extract some things, pull some things out of it. For the most part, it's the same thing every 3 years. So if I go to Sunday school for 3 years, or like most of us our whole lives, I really get the same thing over and over again.
Yeah.
However, if we craft other curriculums, other classes, we take deeper dives, it then gives people another opportunity. And I guess my big thing, as somebody who lives in that Bible Christian education space, how can I meet you where you are? So young man who is not married, doesn't have children, but is trying to grow in his faith and trying to become something, needs something different than young lady with 5 kids who just went through a divorce.
Yeah, that's true.
And is trying to see how God sees her and if she'll ever find love again. Like, while the word of God is true, the place that they are in life is different.
Yeah.
And so having things that can meet them where they are, I think the onus is on the church to provide and to also know your people.
Yes.
Right? So
yeah.
As a preacher, pastor, curator, church educator, it's on you to say, okay, we got 65% single mothers. We need to be offering something.
Yeah.
We got a whole bunch of young men who are just getting married or about to get married. We need to have some fatherhood, husbandhood development.
Yeah.
We have 30 young couples under 40. We need to have something for them.
Yeah.
First for their education in the word of God, but also for the fellowship so that I don't feel alone.
Yes.
So I don't feel like, I'm just going to this church to check a box, but I'm receiving something.
Right.
So I feel like that's the part. But the other part of that, again, back to the other thing is people, you got to come.
Yeah. Because
a lot of churches, I know, I've put on programs, I've come up with things. We have the demographic in the church, but the people in the demographic didn't show up. So I'm supposed to have a class and only one person come to it?
That's true. But going back to the value of it, because I think that's like what the overarching, I feel like, idea around like what we owe to the church is also like what we can get back. So I feel like I want to get back to value. Like you said, the class actually has to be appealing to me. So like, yes, you may be offering something along the lines, but like if it doesn't appeal me, why would I go? So going back to the value, so like you got to participate in worship, you got to be in relationship, and I think we've also kind of touched about like the discipleship portion. But let's talk about like what we owe God in like the church realm of our responsibilities. For one, obeying Christ.
Yeah,
like that's what we owe to Christ. So this little pinpoint that I have, it says church members are responsible for obeying Christ and being His hands and feet in the world.
Oh, that's a lot. Like, that's a whole lot.
Yeah.
I think the first thing is how do I obey Christ if I don't know what Christ said?
Yes.
Which I think goes back to the discipleship piece.
Yeah.
Because a lot of us walk around and like, oh, well, Jesus is love. He is. But the love that is American love and the love that is agape love or biblical love, they don't always match.
Yeah, they don't always align. And
so without a biblical worldview, how am I supposed to know what because people remember everybody's wearing those bracelets, what would Jesus do? A lot of times people be like, what would Jesus do? And they didn't even really know what Jesus would do. They just assume, what would a nice guy do?
And that's crazy, literally. and we guilty of that. Well, I'm gonna speak for myself. I'm guilty of that. Like,
yeah. Like, it would be, what would a nice guy do? But really and truly, we never looked at the whole context because we were trying to like make a statement and do what is culturally acceptable. But because I never, like, you didn't put yourself in position to get biblical training or theological training or to just come to Sunday school or Bible study. You're out here talking about what would Jesus do, and you're talking about the opposite thing. I think a lot of times we want to say that a biblical worldview is a love view, and it is to an extent, but I'm gonna tell you the truth. I don't have any kids, so I'm gonna just tell the truth. I don't have any children, but it really bothers me when people like get in the comments on Facebook or YouTube and a parent is disciplining their child, and they're like, "Well, what are you gonna do? You're gonna train that child to hate you?" But if I never tell the child what's wrong, if I never show them any repercussions, if I never show them, they're going to be a hellion to society.
Yes, me allowing a child. Now, I don't have no kids either, but I feel like, well, I'm gonna speak in the context of me and my parents or my grandparents. If my grandparents had allowed me to do what I wanted to do, that wouldn't have been them loving me
at all.
Because as adults, and another point was on there is submitting to elders. But like as a younger person that's under someone that's older than you, they have more than likely experience what you want to experience, and they're telling you that's not the way,
or they've seen somebody who has done like, and they're trying, really what they're trying to do is help you save time, so that every generation doesn't start at the same point and only make it to the same point in the end, and then we can make it forward. And I'm gonna take a discourse, and which is what burns me up when people are always talking about what the black community is always blah 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 blah. I'm like, well, we don't want to listen to our elders. And everybody talks about submission, and submission is like a hot topic. Nobody wants to be submitted. But really, one of the things about submission is being sub to the mission.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not more important than the mission.
Mm-hmm.
And so if somebody sees the mission, they see that we're all under the mission,
Mm-hmm.
and they say, hey, you're going to get off track of the whole mission for all of us. Don't do that. 9 times out of 10, and we've talked about abusive leaders.
Mm-hmm.
If they're not an abusive leader, they are genuinely trying to help you avoid catastrophe.
Yeah.
Like literally trying to keep you out of harm's way. But a lot of us are so stuck on what makes me happy
Mm-hmm.
that we can't see that what we think will make us happy will in the end make us miserable.
Yes. Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Loki
It's okay.
has woken from his nap.
But that's true. And also going back to an example that I've used before, like with my granddaddy, him telling me every morning before I got to school, AJ, think before you speak, your mouth gonna make people hate you.
Mm-hmm.
And even though I'm like, well, granddaddy, look at you, he's probably like, okay, but I've had to go through so many things that you shouldn't have to.
Mm-hmm.
Loki, what's up, buddy? that you shouldn't have to. I don't want you to have to go through.
Mm-hmm.
What was that? Right. But I don't want you to have to go through because I've been through it and I see what the result is. Loki, you are really, I love you, but I'm already like halfway ADHD.
He is doing the absolute most.
You want to say hey to the folks?
Clearly, if you're in our podcast and you're not watching the video, at this point, my sweet 85-pound puppy dog has gotten all up in AJ's face.
And it's towering over me.
And it's towering over his microphone and is demanding attention.
All right, nephew. Look, we got to play later, buddy. Oh, no, we can't kiss. No, I don't play that.
Anyway.
But I love you with the love of Christ.
I think you like that phrase.
Yeah, I do. That's like that is my favorite phrase. Now I say it all day. Thank you, Cole. Love of Christ. Cole gave me them words.
I'm sorry,
y'all.
Come here, Loki. Oh, he ain't studying me.
Loki, your daddy called
Come
you.
here, buddy. Thank you, sir. Come on. There you go. Come on to your spot. All right, back to talking about our topic at hand.
Yes.
Now that Loki has calmed himself.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think a lot of us don't understand that submission is being sub to the mission, realizing that I'm not. This story does not revolve around me.
Yes.
Like I may see life through my eyes, and that's the only vantage point, and so it's not like a movie where I can see everybody else's vantage point. But this is not my story. I am just an actor, or not an actor. I'm just a character.
Yeah. In
this story, and so walking around, like I think we're a whole bunch of narcissists. And we need to be reminded that it's not all about me. So being sub to the mission says that I fall up under whatever the mission is, even if I don't agree.
Yeah.
I think a good example of that is it snowed. And shout out to my pastor who is retired now. It snowed earlier this year. We got to the church. It didn't snow. It was freezing. It was like 14 degrees outside. Yeah. And we got to the church and the heat wasn't working.
Goodness.
And the sanctuary was probably 50 degrees. It was 14 degrees outside. Felt fine with a coat on, but it was definitely cold in the sanctuary. One of the trustees showed up with a heat blaster trying to warm the sanctuary up. It's 8:00 in the morning. The service starts at 10. And Pastor Will was like, we'll just cancel church. And I was like, I don't think that's a good idea. Because I'm always pro, we're not canceling, because every time I cancel, somebody shows up looking for a word. And so, but his perspective was, we got a lot of older members.
Yeah.
We don't want them put them in that mess up arthritis. I'm thinking, obviously, because of my generation, but what about the younger member that's pressing because they're going through a lot?
Yeah.
And specifically, I was thinking about probably 4 or 5 people who were coming, and I knew they were going through things, and their press has been a sacrifice to get to church. So I was like, well, what if they
Yeah. Really need the word for that day.
So I call him to reason with him because he's not there. I'm there in the sanctuary. It's cold. It's like 4 or 5 of us trying to come up with a plan how we're going to warm the sanctuary up in the next 2 hours. Pastor Will cancels. I call him and I'm like, respectfully, I don't think that's a good idea. We go back and forth for probably 2 minutes, and I said, and he's like, I just don't think that's a good idea. And in submission, I said, okay, you're the pastor.
Yeah.
I thought that was a terrible decision. 3 weeks later, the person who was supposed to preach that week now I'm over audio visual, so I'd already seen her sermon notes, preaches that message. That morning in sound check, a fight broke out among the choir members.
Mm-hmm.
And the message that she was going to preach 3 weeks earlier when the
Mm-hmm.
heat wasn't working was the message she preached that morning.
Mm-hmm.
And that message was exactly what they needed to hear.
Yeah.
And me, because I'm looking out at these members, I'm like, man, you're making bad decisions, you fumbling the ball, like da 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 da, because I'm only seeing it from my perspective.
Mm-hmm.
If I would not have been submitted and I would have pushed and pushed and pushed and gotten my way, I could have stepped in the way of what God was preparing for 3 weeks later.
Yes.
And me having the insight to see that I saw the sermon notes that morning and that it was the same sermon notes 3 weeks later, realized that it was probably God that had the heat act up.
Yes.
That we didn't have service that morning. And even though it on a strategic level, it didn't seem right. But I had to submit and trust, okay, well, he's the leader. God is going to show the pulpit before he shows the pew. And I think that that's sometimes our problem is that just because logically it doesn't make sense does not mean that it's not God and that leader is not submitted to God.
Yeah.
Because I was dead wrong. Even though logically and strategically I wasn't. Because one of the ladies I texted said, hey, church has been canceled, was in her bad season and she was on the way. And it ate me up inside. I was frustrated all day. But when I see what God was doing in the globular plan, I was wrong.
Yeah. And you know what? I'm not gonna lie, like I low-key struggle with that too. Not on the level because like I'm not in any like strategical planning with my pastor or nothing like that. But I am a person that it gotta make sense. Like it has to be logical. And I'm the kind of person, you really got to present me with the facts because I'm so strong in my opinion too. And I think that's really where we are similar.
Yeah.
Like if you're going to change my mind, you really got to hit me with the facts.
Yeah.
So that definitely is a struggle with like submitting to the bigger picture. And like one thing I feel like that helps me, it may not help in the moment, but I slightly just disassociate. Like whenever stuff is not making sense, I'm just like, okay, let me just like remove myself.
You leave mentally.
Yeah. But then later I figure out, okay, that's why it made sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, I definitely leave mentally. That's me at work.
And so I think and this is of course talking to the people who are in their 20s and 30s, maybe even early 40s, I would just encourage you to find a leader you trust.
Yes.
Somebody you know prays. Somebody you know is before the face of God.
Yes.
Because there will always be times that God shows the pulpit before he shows the pew. And there are plenty of times where I was like, that was not a good decision. But God has clearly shown the pastor before it came around where I could see it.
Yeah.
And so I would encourage that. Like find, again, I'm always going to tell you to find a church. Find a leader you can trust. Find a leader you know is praying. Find somebody you believe is submitted to God. And then submit to them.
Yes.
Because when they make decisions that are contrary to what you think, you got to trust that they're hearing from God.
Yes.
And so if I don't respect my leader enough to know that they're talking to God, I don't need to be at that church.
Yeah. Because
like,
how can you expect, like, if you don't trust them, you can't expect for them to lead your life. And like,
no,
they're supposed, like, biblically, they're our leader, they're our shepherd.
Yeah.
So
they're supposed to be able to speak into you when you're making mistakes. They're supposed to be able to encourage you, point you in the right direction. And if you don't even trust that they talk to God, why are you there? I don't care how good the music sounds. I don't care how you like the programs. If you can't trust the shepherd, why are you there? And that don't mean go home.
Yeah, that just means find the shepherd that you trust.
Exactly.
But also make sure that your distrust is not because of your own like
trauma.
That, but also like your own, like make sure that it's actually for a good reason and not just you being sensitive or like not wanting to be held accountable. That's the word I was looking for. Because I think oftentimes a lot of people are, a big example that just popped up is the situation with Pastor Henderson, where he corrected that member. Like, don't be embarrassed because of correction that was needed. You know, like I can see if your pastor just really out of line, but like, don't go home based on the fact that you were just You were out of order, and you don't want nobody to tell you that you're out of order because that's crazy.
You're right.
Yeah.
You dead right. Wrong, like right.
Yeah. So like sometimes your pastor is right in correcting you.
Yeah.
And he just right, but if he not, then
And
leave.
sometimes if you don't listen in private, he has to do it in public.
Yeah.
And that's the book.
So now that is the book. I can confirm.
That is the book. That is in the book.
Yeah.
And so I would also push us, because a lot of times somebody pulls us to the side, they try to call you, and you're like, you don't tell me what to do. And so by the time it makes it to the pulpit and they're addressing it in front of other folks, you butthurt, and you want to make them go viral, and you want to make a post about it, or you want to make a video about it. And the pastor was not wrong.
Yeah.
You were not submitted enough to hear when they were trying to warn you in private. God is not going to even allow you not to be warned before something happens.
Yeah. Now, if the first time he addressed you is in public, then maybe I need to have a private conversation.
Yeah.
But or how do you feel about that? Like, okay, a better question. What are some ways that we may miss a pastor trying to warn us in private about stuff before he addresses it publicly?
So I think,
like, what are signs we should look for?
I think depending on the relationship you have with your pastor, sometimes the pastor may not address you. Maybe it'll be a department head, or it'll be a ministry leader, or somebody will come to you. And they're like, hey, this was brought us, what's going on here, and you just dismiss it.
Okay.
And then another time may come like in a small group, or like in a meeting of 2 or 3, because the Bible then says bring some witnesses. And they don't have to announce to you, now we meeting number 2. We have witnesses. Yeah. Like, if you don't do this.
Yeah. You got to do a little brain work.
And so maybe like then it'll happen. And then maybe the pastor may call you, because usually that's how it goes. Then maybe the pastor may call you, or like some ministry, like some higher up leadership may call you, or they may ask to meet with you. That's what's happening.
Yeah.
Another thing that may happen is the pastor may address it broadly from the pulpit. So he may not call your name. He may not even talk about the specific scenario, but he may like address, hey, here we don't do that.
Okay,
like Pastor YPJ recently, and when I say recently, this year, or maybe end of last year, had to get up to his church. He said, hey, if you join this church because you think you're going to marry me, this needs to be your last Sunday.
Yeah.
He didn't call anybody's name.
Yeah.
He didn't say you are not going to marry, but he definitely said, hey, if you join this church for the express reason to marry me, this needs to be your last Sunday. This is not what I do here.
Okay.
Like, he wasn't wrong in that.
No,
he didn't call you out. He didn't embarrass you, but he did lay the law of the land. So there was no question of whether or not I got a chance at this, and I can go and bake him some cakes and call him at midnight talking about, hey, somebody, can you come and pray for me? Like,
no,
shut it down.
Yeah.
And that's not carnal. I think our feelings may be hurt, and so we want to demonize said pastor for saying that, because that was definitely our intention, and we got called out because but that's not wrong.
Okay.
Now, for the last 26 years, my pastor's not been that pastor. He is not at all. He is like I'm going to call you privately and address the situation. I might send you a text message. I might even let it slide a couple times. But I'm not saying that pastors are wrong. I do think a pastor. So my grandmama, and my aunt have their former pastor. He's passed away now. Love the ground that man walks on. They still talk about him and how much better of a pastor he is. I was about to call his name. I had to catch myself.
Oh, yeah. I like saw the struggle in your face.
Yeah. There were some Sundays he was dead wrong. People would be out of church, like older people, like their pastor to be like, oh, sister so-and-so is back in church. Somebody showed up in church and said, I ain't seen you in a month of Sundays. Where you been? And they never went back.
I wouldn't have either.
That's wrong.
Maybe like, I'm glad to see you.
Right. It's so good to see you in worship. Sounds a lot different than, why I ain't seen you in a month of Sundays. Where y'all been? Like, delivery matters too. But
intent versus impact. I talk about that all the time.
It matters. It matters. But I think to that point, another thing that we owe the church is our presence.
Okay, yeah.
Our presence. Like, we can talk about money, we can talk about all these other things, but a lot of our complaints would go answered if we showed up. If when it was time to have church meeting, you were there.
Yeah.
Because a lot of us, we do this. We complain about what church ain't doing this. But then, like, when they have a church meeting, you don't stay.
Or you don't go at all.
You don't come.
So, like, for one, when they got church meetings, why are you not there? Because you just, like, that's your time to voice your concerns.
But a lot of us prefer to gossip than to see change.
Yeah.
Because gossip is fun.
It is.
You know, I think one of the biggest pet peeves, I've been in youth ministry about 16 years.
What? That's a long time.
Am I doing my math right? Yeah, about 16 years. I've been in youth ministry for about 16 years.
That is a long time.
And I would hear kids and teenagers and young adults complain and complain and complain. Now, I'm a mover and a shaker. So if you complain to me, I'm the person that's like, okay, well, what we gonna do about it? Let's fix it. Like, I'm the person that, like, if they bringing a problem to me, like, somebody called me one time. They were like, I just don't understand why the pastor won't do this. I said, you want me to call him? No, you ain't got to do that. Well, then why you calling me for? Well, I don't understand why such and such. I said, well, you want to set up a meeting? No. Why are you calling me?
Now, that's another thing I've learned. Some people just like to complain just to complain. Like, some people, now, I know I'm not that kind of person that can sit up there. Because I always tell my friends, my first thing is, for one, don't call me if you don't want to hear what I got to say. And I also ask, do you want me to say something, or am I just listening?
I say that if you're my friend.
Yeah. If you're my friend, now you just can't be random calling me complaining because get off my phone.
If you're my friend, I do ask that question: Are you calling for advice? Or are you calling because you want to listen? If you're calling me about church stuff, and while I am a member of my church, like let me not pretend like I'm a disconnected man. I am a member just as much as I'm on the staff, but like, don't call me if you don't want to move and shake and stand behind what you say. So one of my biggest pet peeves would be, like, I would hear these kids complain and complain and complain and complain about why they don't want to invite people and why they're embarrassed to invite people to church. I would get Pastor Will to come to a meeting and they would sit there, oh, we love the church.
What's the point of having this meeting?
What's the whole point? But we do that. We don't show up to the meeting. We don't voice our opinion. We would rather gossip than see things change. And I think our generation is really good about that.
Yeah, for sure.
We can gossip, we can leave. But when it comes down to actually making change or making enough noise, like, as Black folks, it wasn't just that Martin Luther King marched. They made noise. Now, you know, they were nonviolent, but they made enough noise that it got people's attention.
Yeah.
And they weren't just complaining among themselves. They made some noise. And if you want to see change anywhere, you got to perfect the art of making some noise. And I'm not telling you to, like, scream out in nobody's church.
Please no.
But what I am saying is you got to make some, there's a problem and that problem is big enough that you say you're embarrassed to invite people to your church. And there are forums for you to express how you feel. Go.
Yeah.
And if you go and you're not heard, that's a different story.
Yes.
But go and at least see if you can be heard. At least go and see if there's something that can be done. Because a lot of the problems that we complain about, the old folks just don't know.
Yeah.
Now, it's some churches where they know and they just don't want to do better. But for the most part,
they just don't know.
No, they don't know. They don't know how to do better. Okay. What else do I owe the church?
So you owe to love one another. But I mean, honestly, I really feel like I'm just calling out these bullet points that they have, but I feel like we've touched on all of this. So guys, I had like 5 main bullet points of our responsibilities to the church, and they were to serve God, to obey Christ, to love one another, to disciple others, and also to submit to elders/leadership. We've really covered all of that.
Well, just one more I got.
Okay.
And I always say this, that I don't ever want to be the tithe and offering preacher. But here's the truth. We always talk about what is the church doing. But usually the people who complain about what the church is doing are the worst stewards in the church. And I'm not telling you to go and just empty your pocketbook or like that preacher that said, loose your wallets.
Yeah, no.
But I will say this. You cannot complain about what the church is doing and you don't even, your stewardship is not up to par. And that's a churchy word for you are not paying any money into the church. Like, Like
you gotta do your part.
Truthfully, I can't. I think I mentioned earlier, we do more funerals than anything else in our church. 50% of them are not members. Sometimes more than 50% are not members. People always want to come back to the home community church and get buried and have the pastor say things that they don't even know about this person because this person didn't come to church. And they want the church, the usher, they want the choir to sing. They want the building to be on with the lights on. They want to be able to come in the back and have a good meal. They want to complain that they can't have white meat over dark meat. You want somebody to be there 2 hours early so the body can get in. But you don't want to contribute, and you want to say that all pastors and preachers want is my money. And so you want the church to exist when it serves you. But like, what are you doing to ensure that it exists?
Yeah.
Like the Bible gives us bring the tithe to my storehouse that there might be meat in my house. That's Old Testament. New Testament says give. The Greek word says hilariously, or you should be a cheerful giver. Like when we contribute to the church, we contribute to the church so the church has the resources to do the programs.
Yeah.
So that you can have the discipleship classes, and that there is a book, and there are materials, and that there is an outreach day, and that the church can give away groceries, and that they can go out and do bounce houses for the kids in the summertime, and that there is space for if the church has a church school or there a summer camp. Like, we don't give just so that the church can be a building, but so that the church can be the church.
Yes.
And a lot of us think that people just want our money, and there's promises attached to giving. But the truth is, you want the benefits of the church without contributing.
So you also owe the financial part.
Where on earth can I go for free?
Nowhere. You can't even go home for free because you got to pay your mortgage, your rent, your utilities, bills.
Even the library. Let's tell the truth. Everybody says, well, the library is the last free place you can go.
No, you need a membership card.
You need a card. The card is like $5.
Yeah.
But my tax dollars from me working pay so that there may be a library
Literally.
that my children or you may be able to patronize for free. So where can I go? Anywhere in the world.
Nowhere.
Even the park. I don't have to pay an admission fee, but those tax dollars from me working.
You paying now or later.
Paid for it to exist. And so we have such a hard time thinking through stewardship. And let me be real. There are churches like, I don't think you need to go to Creflo Dollar's church where he's trying to get a new jet. I don't think you need to go to that weird guy that I think has got a demon. You know, the man with the eyes, the white guy.
Oh, yeah. He looks dead in the eyes.
Yeah, he scares me.
He is very scary.
Yeah. Like, I don't think you need to go there where he's talking about he can't be among the common people. Like, find a pastor that want to be among the sheep. Like, find a church that is doing things, trying to do things, trying to be relevant, trying to be in the community. Like, and that they're teaching the Bible.
Yes.
And so there. I'm gonna tell it because it's my podcast. This is Kojo and Co Media. Okay. But the truth of the matter is, I think a lot of times we have a hard time with stewardship because we see caricatures like that. And all we do is we turn around, especially in the black church, we turn around and go to an even bigger church where the pastor's doing the exact thing we were afraid of because we feel like the church in the hood with the black members that are caring for the black souls is playing over the money. And so it's like you're pointing fingers, but going to the place that is doing exactly what you're afraid of.
Yeah.
And I'm not against white churches. I go to a white Bible study on Wednesday mornings, and I love those brothers. Right?
Yeah.
But I'm just trying to get you to see it. Like, if you feel like your pastor is a white man and God has called you there, go. Be faithful, be a good steward, sow, serve, do all the stuff.
Yeah.
But I don't want us to paint the picture that every black preacher is out here trying to pimp out the congregation.
Yeah, because that's not true.
And that's not true. I know more faithful black preachers and churches that are trying to steward the word, steward the church, and steward the finances to do the most and have the biggest impact than I do otherwise. Yes.
And honestly, going back to kind of like what we talked about in our tithing episode, I have known pastors that actually pull out of their own finances to make sure that the church stays afloat. So like a lot of pastors that you think are taking big money, they aren't. They just have other jobs outside of being a pastor.
Most of the pastors I know are bivocational.
Yeah.
Or tri-vocational.
Okay. Bivocational. Oh, that mean like multiple jobs?
They got two careers.
No, bi means two.
Yeah, two careers.
And then try is three, but.
Yeah. And when like not just two jobs, but like two careers.
Okay.
Like when I think about my pastor was the chief traffic engineer for the city of Birmingham, and he was the senior pastor in the Baptist church.
Yeah.
Like two full-time jobs. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, my pastor, he's a lawyer.
Right. Like
yeah.
Working a whole, like I don't, if the church couldn't afford to pay me, I'm still going to be able to serve God.
Yeah.
Now, Moses not the ox. Remember that? That treads out the corn. So like you still should want to serve them who serve you. Mm-hmm. But most pastors, if we're going to tell the truth, have to work two jobs.
Yeah.
Like their kids and their family would not eat. It's not off your tithing. You think about that, 10%, and you only making $1,000 a week. So you putting $100 in church, and you think he eating off? You think that new car he got is because of your tithes?
Sure. Well, I guess y'all sitting in the dark. Now, if y'all sitting in the dark and he got a new car,
that's a different story.
Then maybe that might be your tithes. Yeah. But like if your church is up running well, that man can't spend the money. And for one, that's why I have. Now there are some churches where it's ran by the pastor, but most churches have the infrastructure in place to make sure that the pastor
exactly
is in line. And honestly, guys, most churches, the pastor is just the face. The trustees and the deacons, they make the decisions.
Mm-hmm. Like at our church is literally run by our trustee board, deacon board, and the pastor.
Yeah.
And the pastor, anything outside of spiritual, like spiritual education, something spiritual, he has to come by the board to ask.
Yeah, like he got a seat at the table, but he ain't the table.
No. It's like 25 people in the room.
There's most churches.
And not all.
Yeah.
And that's one of the differences between most, we're just talking denominations, between most Baptist churches and most non-denominational churches. And this is not all, but most. Because
this ain't no shade.
Not at all.
Yeah.
Like if you have a different, I want to hear about it. Tell me about the structure of your church. Tell us in the comments.
Yeah.
But like I know our church is a voting church first, so we got a board of officers.
Yeah.
But then after the board of officers make a decision, any structural change has to be ratified by the congregation. And if the congregation don't ratify it, it don't matter what the board of officers say. It's a no.
Right.
It's not happening.
Now I don't know how my church structure is. I just know they make the decisions. I mean, it's my first time I've been grown in church, so like, ain't nothing big happened to where we had to vote. Like, I don't know. Yeah. Do they send it in the mail?
I don't know how your church works.
Okay. I know. Well, how do y'all do? Do they just announce it on Sunday?
During the pandemic, so pre-pandemic, they call something called church conference. Okay. It's not like a conference, like a worship conference. It's like we come together and have a meeting. And then they have 2 weeks before they put out a packet. They call it the package. So usually big, they do. It's literally, it'll be like 10, 15 pages. And it'll be every department's recommendations. It'll be the budget breakdown for the year. It'll be the pastor's objectives for the year. And then you've got 2 weeks to talk to your department head, trustee, or deacon about any concerns you have.
Okay.
And then after that, we go to the conference. Sometimes they open up the floor, sometimes they don't, because sometimes they're supposed to be fighting in the meetings. And then the church votes on the package. And you have to ratify the package at whole. Now, if there's enough questions that come up on something in that 2 week period, they have to go back to the drawing board and say, hey, we got problems. This might not pass.
Yeah.
I know during the pandemic, we did an electronic ballot and people had to vote electronically. I don't know how that went or not because I don't know. But I do know that during the pandemic, we had an electronic ballot. But normally we have a meeting. And you have to signify your vote by standing. So you like,
so you got to stand on business.
You got to like this is not I got a ballot. Like if you really feel this way about something, you got to be bold enough to stand up about it. And I don't know, that might be manipulative, but
low key.
But it is what it is.
Fear mongering.
Yeah, but it's
especially if you got social anxiety.
Yeah, and you I know in our church, if you're not 17 years old, you can't vote.
Well, I mean, I guess that makes sense.
I don't know. I feel like I was an advanced young person.
But that's rare. Like, I have learned that. I think we have surrounded ourselves with all of the people that were, but like, not everybody was.
That's true. That's true.
Because I've had some conversations with people. I'm like, oh, okay.
You really said 17. Yeah.
Or no, like my thing is, I'm like, you really, your thought process is what I was when I was 17. So I'm scared of where you were. Yeah. But that's not us being judgmental. Let's end it before we do start judging. But the overall arching like theme, sorry, Lord, I can't talk. Why I work so hard today?
I don't know.
So yeah, I really wasn't feeling good earlier, so I think that might be it. But also I am scatterbrained, so I can't blame it on me being not feeling well. That's why I got my phone, because I got to keep my notes. But see, I'm going on a tangent. But the overarching theme of this episode was that you do have responsibility to the church. We have similar responsibilities, but no. Sorry. We got the same responsibilities, but it's about bringing your time, bringing your talents, bringing your resources, loving others, loving God, and sometimes submitting to something that may not logically make sense to you. So we just want to encourage you, like,
well, hold on.
Okay.
I think the overarching thing that I want to make sure that everybody understands,
okay,
is that what I owe to the church is that I got to buy all the way in. The church needs you. You don't get, it's not a buffet that I get to pick and choose what I take and what I leave. Like, if I want to reap benefits of the church, I need to become part of the church. And it's kind of like this. If my calling is to be a hand, I don't get to choose that I'm only going to use my index finger and my pinky.
Yeah.
Like, we need the hand, and we need the hand all the time. Like, we need all your digits, because I don't know if you've ever like had a broken finger. Like, when one goes down, we got a problem.
Really?
Oh, it's terrible.
That has always scared me. I thank the Lord I ain't never broke none.
I have torn. Is this one? I've torn this finger playing football so many times. Like, I mean, that knuckle. I've torn the tendon in that finger so many times. But you've got to buy in.
Yeah.
And you can't complain about a church until you buy all the way in.
Okay. Yeah, you eat me up too. Yeah, honestly, I just feel like Cole bring me on here just to talk about me in my face. And I'm finna swing on him.
I'm just kidding. Definitely gonna bring him on here to talk about him.
But that's so true. I think a lot of us aren't bought all the way in, and then we are finding things to complain about, but it's probably because you aren't bought all the way in.
I agree.
Yeah.
I think a lot of us, that's the prevailing problem most of us have, is that you join the church, you go to a or you just visit a church. I'm going to get a word and get a worship.
Yeah.
And then we left our church so that we can go sit on the back pew of somebody else's church. And that's, you cause that church to swell. That church is not growing. If you don't bring all of you, they're swelling. And you're becoming a drain on the resources, the heart, the energy that they have, instead of bringing yours so that they may have more to move forward. And before long, you're going to be complaining about that church because you're not contributing nothing.
Yeah.
But
well, look, find you a church so that you can contribute. A Bible-believing, Bible-teaching, living upright church. It don't got to be the church that hurt you. And it don't got to be the church where the pastor call you out and ain't never talked to you privately. It don't got to be. But find you one. Every pastor ain't your pastor. Every church ain't your church. Who was that? It was like, nothing.
And I
was going to go off tangent.
So there's a guy who probably will be on the podcast soon as a visitor. And he'll tell you, I told him this. He comes to my Bible study every Wednesday night. He's in town. I like this guy. Good guy. He told me that he was thinking about joining the church. I said, don't come here unless the Lord told you come here. And I like him. I think he's a good guy. But I told him that, and y'all hear my heart. I told him that because anybody in the wrong house will cause chaos. They won't receive anything, and they will take a lot. And he may join the church and be the best thing ever. I think he would be a great asset if God has anointed him for this season. And so I just don't want y'all to think that like we say this out of every week because we're like trying to be funny.
Yeah.
Join the right church.
Yes.
Go to the right. There is a house for you.
It is.
It may not be my house. It may not be AJ's house. It may not be the church that's shiny and flashy. But there is one for you.
So find it.
Yeah.
Find it. Well, y'all, we love you with the love of Christ. And I just love stealing Cole's lines. And I just think Cole needs to give me a script so I can say something else.
Oh my God. Y'all be blessed.
Y'all be blessed.
Say goodbye to Loki.
Bye, Locamus. See y'all next week.
Bye-bye.